Here we have the silver reverse osmosis filter system. Basically, what you get extra compared to the bronze one is we've got the bacteria pre-filters here instead of the normal ones. So we have a KDF instead of a carbon filter, and then we've got the ultrafiltration membrane to physically block bacteria instead of the standard carbon block filter. And we've upgraded to an American Filmtech membrane instead of the Chinese membrane. You're still using the standard tap. You still get your tank valve, your half-inch supply connector, your drain connection, and your pressure protection valve, 5 meters of pipe, and your spanners, and then of course the main unit itself and your tank included in the kit. But basically the silver one is, if you know there's a bit of a problem with bacteria in your area, this is probably the kit to go for. It gives you a bit of extra peace of mind that you have a double barrier system for bacteria. So this one can actually be purchased and used on borehole systems or systems which are fed from river water. Keep in mind it can still only handle as much physical dirt into the system as you can have through a single particle filter. If you have very high dirt, we recommend putting some kind of a whole house setup to get rid of most of the dirt before you use a system like this. But this is a very good option for improving the quality of your drinking water if you know the incoming water is a little bit suspect. And as with the other systems, you have got the option to rather go for the unit with a pump if your pressure is a little bit on the low side, or if you want to decrease your wastewater. So what is reverse osmosis? It was originally designed as a process to desalinate seawater, but the basic concept is based around the membrane. Here we have 3 different options for the reverse osmosis membranes. But basically, if you imagine my hand as the physical membrane, which is wrapped around in the circle and the spiral on these ones here. Water with high salt content or high mineral content gets pushed along here, and then on the other side the pores are so tiny that you actually just have H2O, just water molecules passing through. But the problem with that, and this is one of the big downsides of reverse osmosis, is that everything that gets removed gets stuck on this membrane, and this forms physical crystals here. So you have salt crystals and lime crystals growing on here. And for that reason, you constantly need to flush water across the surface of the membrane to keep those crystals dissolved. Otherwise, this membrane basically turns into a block of salt in a very short period of time. Now, this gives you wastewater. And that is one of the biggest drawbacks of reverse osmosis, is that you have got quite a bit of wastewater. Now, these typical domestic systems are rated to be able to handle up to 400 parts per million mineral content. Now, it's a little bit difficult to judge exactly what it is, but in most municipalities it'll be less than that. But certain municipalities such as Witbank and Middelburg actually have higher. And Middelburg specifically, we installed a system there where it's 600 parts per million. So it is something to keep in mind, that you can actually get over the rated capacity of these systems. Now, what does it really mean in terms of wastewater? You get different ratings of membranes. We normally start with a 100 gallon per day membrane, which is our standard, but is in the industry it's sort of the upgrade. You normally start with a 50 gallon per day. And what that rating is, that is how much product water you get through the membrane for a set amount of wastewater. Now, on the Gauteng municipal water, you would typically get between a 2-to-1 and a 4-to-1 ratio of wastewater with a 100 gallon membrane. Now, what that means is for every 1 liter of product water you get between 2 and 4 liters, depending on the mineral composition of the water and on your pressure, that's actually going to drain just to dissolve those crystals away. Now, how do you get that better? As that is a really big drawback of these systems. One, improve your pressure. The systems require a minimum of 3 bar pressure to run, which you can then run a standard one without a pump. If, however, you're close to the 3 bar or lower, then you definitely need a system with a built-in booster pump on it, which would take the pressure up to about 5.5 bar. Or if you're close to the 3 bar but you're within the range and you just want a better efficiency, If you compare, say, a normal system running on free bulb versus a pump system, you can be as much of a difference as 4 parts wastewater for the normal system, going down to about 2 parts wastewater for the pump system. So it really does make quite a big difference, and that's a lot of the time the reason why people opt for the system with the pump rather. Another way you can reduce this is to go for a special membrane that has a higher capacity. Like we have a 200 GPD membrane, which is double the capacity. So that one, it still has the same wastewater. Now that means you can't run it on as high of a mineral content water. You can only run it on up to about 200 parts per million, which is fine for Gauteng municipal water, which basically what it means, you get double the product water out, but your wastewater stays the same. So while you're running the system, where we would say you were running on this one on free bulb pressure and you were getting a 4:1 wastewater ratio, and on the exact same circumstances, this one will have half the wastewater. So you would get closer to a 2:1 ratio, or with a pump you can actually approach a 1:1 ratio, which is a lot better and almost at the level of a nanofiltration system, which is your one step less at removing it. So basically what happens, reverse osmosis tries to remove all the minerals, and in the process, it's something that can't be helped. You will have wastewater running here. For the people who are in situations where they have a lot higher mineral content, unfortunately it's not ideal, as you're above the rated settings for the system. What we do recommend, go for the FilterShop membrane. It's an American membrane. It can handle a little bit more mineral content. It's a little bit more expensive, but for a reason. And what you can do is you can actually put a valve on the wastewater and run more wastewater, or every now and then bypass the restrictor on the wastewater to give the membrane a good flush. Then you can run higher mineral content water through the system and still get a good product water, but you do lose a lot of lifespan on the membrane in such a situation. Okay, so let's look at how the actual system works. Basically, first thing to keep in mind, there's 2 variants. There's this, which is the one without a pump, and then we'll show you the one with a pump in a little bit. And basically, if you have over free bulb pressure, or are happy to run the system with a bit more wastewater, the standard unit without the pump is quite a nice option, as it performs the same function and is quite a lot less expensive. So firstly, you'd connect your source water, would come in on this side of the system. Then it would run through a particle filter, which is just a white filter, and this physically gets dirty from the outside going in. Then that's just for dirt. Then in the middle, the standard set, and there's a few other sets which we'll run through later, runs through a granular activated carbon filter. And this is basically mainly in municipal situations, this is to remove chlorine. Then finally, at the bottom here, it runs through a carbon block, which again is carbon, again to remove chlorine. The difference is this has got a bit of a particle filter coating around it, because the carbon filters actually create a lot of dust, which can damage your membrane. So it's just to catch the worst of that dust. Now, this kind of filter set is typically got a lifespan of 6 months, but it is something you need to look at your specific water for, as it can range dramatically. It can be a month and it can be 2 years. So it really depends on your specific water, but the average is about 6 months. What you would look for is this one, if it starts to get dirty, sort of brown past halfway, it is time to replace it, definitely. And on any of the carbon filters, if you start to feel a sliminess here at the top, then that is bacteria growing on the carbon. It's time to throw them away. Or if you start to get a chlorine smell or taste coming through. So we run through those 3 filters at the bottom here. And then it goes up to the top of the system. I'm just going to move this out of the way so we can have a look. What we have here, it goes through this little valve here. It basically is, it's what we call the 4-way valve. It basically does a pressure differential measurement here. What it does is your incoming line has got a small diameter piston that can cut it off, and this is what goes into the membrane here. And then after the membrane, this little elbow here right at the end is actually a non-return valve, so your product water can't run back into the membrane. And here it's on this four-way valve, we've got a large surface area membrane, and that then the larger surface area, if the pressure starts to get similar on the product side to the incoming side, actually pushes a little plunger across and closes off your incoming water, and that's what turns off your system. Now, it's a very simple mechanism, works great for most situations. They can get damaged, especially by high lime content, you can sometimes get a situation where, or if your particle filter isn't replaced, where you actually damage the mechanism, and this is typically the part that causes your system to keep running. So this housing here is where your physical RO membrane gets placed in. It's very important, the black seal is on the cap side, so you just unscrew the cap, unscrew the pipe from the cap, unscrew the cap, take it out of this package, push it in, screw the cap back on, screw its pipe back on, and that's your RO membrane. As we said, the one side is the one with the non-return valve right at the end, which runs back through the four-way valve, and then that runs into the T33 here, which is also just a carbon filter. It helps a little bit if you have some funny tastes or smells coming through in the water, but mainly it's used to catch the preservatives from the membrane when you're replacing the membrane. This one's lifespan is 6 months to a year typically. On the one side here you get an elbow which then heads to the buffer tank. Because of these membrane filtration processes run quite slowly, you always have a physical tank which is included. The tank only has one pipe connected to it, which is in and out, as the tank physically has a membrane inside that gets compressed by the water pressure, which is full of air, and then that air pressure pushes the water back out as you draw from it, and that's connected up to this side. You'll see all the little caps on them are nice and friendly. They're labeled, so this one you can actually see it says tank, the other one says in, right at the beginning here. And then here we have to the faucet, which you just need to drill a hole for and then connect it up there, and that will be your product water. On the other side of the membrane here, this connection right here at the back is our wastewater. So this is what I explained earlier, that flushing of the membrane. The water that gets flushed goes through here. This little mechanism here is a flow restrictor. It basically lets a certain amount of flow through. The standard one is a 300 milliliter per minute, although the flow varies according to the pressure you have. If you have a high mineral content water, you would want to have a larger flow restrictor on here, or you would want to physically buy some T-pieces and a valve to be able to bypass it and have more flow running across the membrane. This is only for extreme situations. So that is basically the standard RO unit. Just for comparison, if we look at the one with a pump, the bottom housings are basically the same, except for that after the first housing there's actually a T-split which goes to a low pressure switch, which we'll show you in a moment here. But if you look at the top, you'll see there's quite a few extra little bits and pieces here. First you've got a transformer to provide everything with 24 volt. Then you've got a 24 volt diaphragm pump. The membrane and T33 is very similar here. I'm just going to move them out of the way so we can have a look at what's going on underneath. This little switch right here at the back, which is sort of a square block, that's the low pressure switch. This is basically just to prevent the system from turning on and running while it's not supposed to. You still have the same four-way valve connection on the basic pump unit, so same as the other system. Then after the four-way valve going on the product water side, you have a high pressure switch, which basically just turns off the pump when the tank is full and the tap is closed. So instead of only relying on the four-way valve, you now have got electrical switch just to switch off the electrical components of the system. So overall, very similar, very simple system once you get to know it. As I said, when would you use this? It's either if you have got less than 3 bar pressure, or if you're in a situation where you really don't want to have a high wastewater, then switching to the system with the built-in pump is a good option. Here we have the different faucet designs for the under-counter systems. We have our ASO1, which is our standard one, which is a 3-lever tap. It is a completely chrome. It is still a very nice design and it's very popular. This is why we use the standard. Then here we have our ASO3 design, which is a very similar design. The neck and look of it similar. It's just that this one is a single lever tap instead of a 3-lever tap. And then we get to our ASO4 designs. Now there are 2 options here. There's a brushed finish and a chrome finish to it. They're very, very nice taps. They're quite a bit taller than the other designs and a lot more modern looking. And it's just a 90-degree turn on the lever there. This here is a brushed finished tap. And this one here is a chrome finish tap. On the design itself, they're identical. It's just the physical finish that is used on the metal. Here we have the different membrane options for the reverse osmosis systems. The standard one is a Chinese membrane. It's a Bontron membrane. They give quite good service, and we specifically chose this 100 GPD one as it gives a very good value point in terms of not having too much wastewater and giving you excellent quality product water. If you want to take a step up from that, or if you have a problem with slightly higher mineral content water, or you just want the membrane to last a long time, we do stock the FilterShop membrane from the States as well. It is a bit more expensive. We have a lot of customers who swear by them and only use the FilterShop membranes. They are very good quality, but you do pay a little bit of a premium as they're manufactured in the States. And then we've got an option of a 200 GPD membrane, which is used on our gold systems as well. This gives you double the product water and half of the wastewater, but keep in mind that it can't be used on a high mineral content water. We really do not recommend using it on a water with a TDS of over 200 parts per million. One of the options which we really would recommend, especially if you're doing a DIY installation, is this leak detector tray. Basically what it is, it's a little tray where you actually clamp this onto the middle housing with the bolts provided, and your unit actually stands inside this tray, or the tray hangs underneath the unit. And your incoming water line, you then connect your water in and the water to the system through this little mechanism here. The water goes in and it goes out here, and it basically is a mechanism that uses these little tabs, which we do have extra ones available if you want to purchase replacement ones. And the tab physically expands when it comes in contact with water, and it triggers the lever to flip over, which then shuts off the incoming water to the system. So the idea is that if you have a leak happening, or if you have a pressure spike or something damaging the system, that this will turn off the water supply heading to the system itself. Installation is quite simple. As I said, you clamp this onto the bottom of the unit. This mechanism gets put here. It does come with little screws and a bit of double-sided tape. The double-sided tape from the manufacturer unfortunately isn't the best, so we do recommend either using something like PVC weld glue or a more heavy-duty double-sided tape to actually fasten it securely here, as the ones provided from the manufacturer isn't ideal. There's also little feet provided in the kit which just stick onto the bottom if you want this to physically stand. If you want the unit to physically stand on this in the cupboard. Alternatively, you can mount it to the wall, or it can just hang off at the bottom of the system. It does, however, make your maintenance a little bit more annoying, as you first have to unscrew the system and disconnect the feed water on here before you can actually remove the housings to do your maintenance on the system. If you don't want to go through the hassle of installing the leak detector, or if you just want something to warn you in general if something goes wrong, we have got this leak detecting alarm, which normally you just put down in the cupboard. The batteries last quite long, and if there's any leaks, you just there we go. As soon as the water connects these 3 contact points at the bottom of the system, an alarm goes off, audibly telling you that something is wrong, come have a look. Now, this is a very useful thing. Unfortunately, it doesn't really help if you're not at home, but as a easy to use and nice thing to just add on, it really is handy, because it is a very frustrating thing if you end up with wet cupboards. Water pressure can be a huge issue for these filter systems. They're rated to handle 6 bar pressure, but we very often find in some areas where people either don't have a pressure reducing valve in front of the whole house, or if it's something like an apartment building which is up quite high, you find, and you're staying on one of the lower levels, or just certain areas where you're very low compared to where your water tower or water reservoir is, you get very high pressure. Now, the standard pressure protection valve that we use just basically just cuts off the water supply at 5 bar. So if you constantly have high pressure, it's a bit of a problem, because then your system might not always get water. Now, if you're in a situation where you either want just a little bit more control, or where you know you consistently have very high pressure water, we actually have a tiny pressure reducing valve, which is an adjustable unit that you can set at the top here. If you're using one of these, we really recommend either borrowing from somewhere or getting the guy doing the installation to just check the pressure it's set to with your water. Because it's adjustable, you can easily set it too low or set it to a point where it's not being very useful at all. But the nice thing with this is if you constantly have high pressure, this pressure reducing valve can actually bring that down to a level which is safe for your system to use. Another thing really to keep in mind is how much pipe are you actually going to use for your installation. What you need to remember is you've got a pipe running to the system from your water source. You've got a pipe running from the system to where you want to place the tank. You've got a pipe running from the system to an easy to use drain point. And if you have a little bit of extra pipe, a really nice option is to actually take your drain point out into the garden and let the wastewater rather water the plants. And then finally you need to run the pipe from the system to where the faucet will be. Now, the physical systems vary between 3 and 5 meters that come with them. So it's okay for a minimum installation, but we would really recommend go measure out what you will really need and order additional pipe if you think your installation will require it. This is a mineral injector. They normally come in different colors and there's a few different variations. Now, a lot of people add these to an RO system to add some of the minerals that the RO has taken away back into it. Now, they do work out quite expensive to maintain and normally don't give you the best taste. So what we recommend if you're looking for something like this, unless there's a specific technical reason why you can't, instead of adding a mineral injector, rather swap your reverse osmosis membrane for a nanofiltration membrane. Now, where reverse osmosis removes 99% of the salts and minerals from the water, and it gives you a very low mineral content water, which some people like and some people really don't. For example, if you're very active, exercise a lot and have a low salt diet, you want to stay away from RO. Then nanofiltration is a better option. What nanofiltration does is it actually only removes 50% of the minerals. So you still get the same effect with a very different tasting water, but instead of having to add minerals back into the water, you're just not removing all of them. And then this membrane can last you 3 to 5 years, depending on how often you change your pre-filters. So it's a lot less maintenance intensive, and it normally works out cheaper in the long run, while still giving you a better tasting water. The different size storage tanks available with the RO systems. Basically, the reason why you need a storage tank is the RO itself provides you with a slow trickle of water. As the standard units with 100 GPD membrane only provides about 10 litres of water per hour. So as you can imagine, if you want to quickly fill a few bottles or fill your kettle or a few pots you want to fill for cooking, that's going to be frustrating if you're going to need to wait for the system. Hence the tank. The tank basically works, it's almost got a balloon inside, and then you push water in and the water compresses the balloon and then increases the air pressure inside. And then once the water and air pressure is equalized and you draw water from the faucet side, then that air pressure pushes the water back out, because then you then have lower water pressure again. Now, the standard one will give you between about 5 to 9 litres of water. The higher pressure you use on the incoming system, like this is the standard one, but if you're using the system with the pump, you have a chance that you're probably going to store more water in the tank as well. The tanks all have standard air valves. You normally want them at about 0.8 to 1.1 bar, and it's normal fittings like the garage use. If you pump them too hard though, you can't compress the air and then you get no capacity in the tank. It is something you could play around with, but normally the preset value is okay. As you can see here, we've got different sizes available. The standard one is nice as it's normally easy to fit within a shelf size. Then here we have a 19 litre one as well, or 18.9 litres, 5 gallons. It is a little bit larger, just if you want that few extra litres of storage. We currently don't have the 40 litre one on a display model to use for the video, but here's a 74 litre one. Just to give you an idea of the relative sizes, the 40 litre one is about in between these two. So if you are looking to use it at an office, probably the 74, the 40 litre is a nicer thing to have, as you'd often find around lunchtimes or so, and everyone would come and draw water, and then having a bigger buffer is definitely a nice option. For domestic systems, what we personally find works really well as well is all of these tanks connect to the tank side here of the T33, but if you want to increase your flow at the faucet itself, on the line between the faucet and the machine going from this side, you can actually add a second little tank as a buffer to give you a higher pressure. We actually have a kit which comes with a tank, a little bit of pipe, a valve and a T-piece to tee into this line. And I've used that on my system, and what you actually get is you end up going from filling a 500 ml water bottle in about 14 to 15 seconds, it takes it down to about 7 seconds. So that having a tank close to your tap as an extra buffer actually increases the flow rate you can get from the system quite significantly. Me personally, I feel it's a great thing just to have that water on tap much quicker, and then you can have a larger buffer in the normal tank position if you have needs for larger storage. There are other options available. You can have plenty of these tanks connected, or you can just have one standard tank with the system. In the end, it depends on what your needs are.